Here's a wild fact. Cows, yes. Ordinary cows grazing in fields produce more greenhouse gases than all the world's airplanes combined. That's right, it's not just jet fuel warming the planet, it's cow burps. And scientists are now testing quirky, almost sci-fi solutions like feeding cows, red seaweed, or sprinkling in a compound that blocks their burp chemistry to slash those emissions. It sounds funny, but this could actually be one of the most powerful climate hacks we've got when we talk about climate change. The conversation often turns to coal plants, gas cars, or airplanes, but one sneaky culprit often overlooked? Livestock especially. Cattle. Every time a cow digests its food, it releases methane, mostly through burps. And methane is no small player. It's a greenhouse gas far more potent than carbon dioxide. In fact, livestock are responsible for about 14% of all human costs. Greenhouse gases, with methane from cattle being a major slice of that pie. The challenge is clear: we love burgers, steak, and milk. Billions of people rely on cattle for food and livelihood. So the big question is, can we make cows greener? The surprising answer, yes. By tweaking their diets with special feed additives. Scientists have found ways to cut cattle methane emissions by 30, 50, even up to 90% in some cases. That's huge. And today, we're going to break down the science, the solutions, and the challenges of this burpee problem. First, why do cows burp methane in the first place? It all comes down to how they digest food. Unlike humans, cows are ruminants, meaning they have a special stomach with 4 compartments. The biggest one, called the rumen, acts like a fermentation vat. Inside the rumen live trillions of microbes, tiny bacteria and archaea that break down tough plant fibers into nutrients the cow can absorb. It's an amazing biological system, but it has a side effect. During fermentation, some microbes produce methane as waste. And since cows can't keep that gas bottled up, they release it mostly by burping. A single dairy cow can burp out about 200 to 500 liters of methane per day. Multiply that by nearly 1 billion cattle worldwide, and you start to see the scale of the issue. So why is methane such a big deal compared to carbon dioxide? Think of CO as a standard blanket trapping heat and slowly warming the earth. Methane, on the other hand, is like a supercharged electric blanket turned up to max heat. Over a 20-year period, methane is more than 80 times more powerful at trapping heat than CO. Even though it doesn't last as long in the atmosphere, about 12 years compared to centuries for CO. It does a ton of damage in that short time. That means cutting. Methane emissions gives us one of the fastest ways to slow down global warming. It's like slamming the brakes instead of just easing off the gas pedal. And since cows are one of the top methane sources, their diets have become a target for innovation. Here's where the science gets exciting. Researchers have been experimenting with feed additives. Researchers have been experimenting with feed additives. Basically, supplements mixed into cow diets that interfere with methane production inside the rumen. 2 of the most promising solutions are: number 1, 3-NOP, also known as Bovaer, developed by DSM Fermentic. This synthetic compound works by inhibiting an enzyme in the microbes that produce methane. Think of it as flipping the off switch for methane at the microbial level. Studies show it can reduce methane by 30% in dairy cattle and up to 45% in beef cattle. Even better, it's been approved in over 65 countries, including the US, EU, and Australia. Number 2, red seaweed, also called Asparagopsis. This one's straight from nature. Red seaweed contains a compound called bromoform, which disrupts methane production. Under ideal conditions, adding a small amount of this seaweed to cow diets can reduce methane emissions by up to 98% in beef. Cattle, that's almost like turning cows into zero-burpers. Number 3, other additives. There's ongoing research into natural products like essential oils, tannins, and probiotics. These aren't as far along as Bovaer or seaweed, but they could play supporting roles in reducing methane. Let's look at some real-world results. In the Netherlands, trials with Bovaer in dairy herds showed consistent reductions of around 30%. Methane without affecting milk quality? In Australia, beef cattle supplemented with Asparagopsis seaweed saw methane reductions of over 90% in feedlot settings. In California, a dairy farm piloting both approaches reported not just emission cuts, but also improved feed efficiency, meaning cows used energy more effectively. And the key reassurance: these additives are safe. For example, Bovaer breaks down in the rumen and doesn't show up in milk or meat. If we could roll out these additives globally, the impact would be massive. Remember, cattle account for nearly 4% of total global greenhouse gas emissions, almost equal to all aviation and shipping combined. If additives like Bovaer and Asparagopsis were adopted widely, we could cut cattle methane emissions by at least 30 to 40%. That's like taking hundreds of millions of cars off the road or eliminating entire industrial sectors worth of emissions. Beyond climate, these solutions could help farmers improve efficiency, reduce waste, and potentially unlock climate subsidies. Or carbon credits. Of course, it's not all smooth sailing or smooth burping. There are real challenges. Scaling production. Seaweed needs to be farmed at massive scales to feed millions of cattle. Current supply is tiny compared to the need. Costs. Additives can cost farmers around $100 to $150 per cow per year. Without subsidies or incentives, that's a big expense. Adoption. It's easier to add supplements in feedlots or dairy barns, but much harder with grazing cattle spread across large fields. Research gaps. Long-term effects on grazing systems. Dosing consistency and impacts across breeds still need more data. So while the potential is huge, the road to global adoption requires policy support, farmer education, and investment in new infrastructure. When you think about solving climate change, you might picture wind turbines, solar panels, or electric cars. But here's the twist. Something as simple as tweaking what cows eat could make a serious dent in global warming. Cow burps may sound silly, but they're one of the fastest levers we can pull to cool the planet in the next decade. And with science-backed, feed additives like Bovaer and red seaweed, we're closer than ever to turning cattle into climate allies instead of methane machines. So, what do you think? Would you eat a burger from a cow that burps 90% less methane? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed learning about this quirky but powerful climate solution, hit that like button, subscribe, and join us for more videos about unusual technology shaping the future, because sometimes saving the planet really does start with a burp.